All right. Hello and welcome. Morella here. Great to see you all virtually again. I am so glad to have you be a part of our downsizing webinar. As we continue our Wellness and Wisdom series, we are very excited to be kicking it off with this particular topic. We all know how much everyone loves talking about downsizing and transitions that come along with that. I always look forward to downsizing tips and tricks because I know how much work I need to do in my own place. So this is a good kickstart to the year. Just per usual, I love to go over just the platform to encourage all of you to submit your questions along the way. On either the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the screen, you should have a little icon that says question or has a question mark. Feel free to throw in your question for our speaker today throughout the presentation. We will address questions at the end of the webinar. Do also say hello to me. I miss seeing all of your bright smiling faces. So shoot a hello in the question box to me. Let me know that you're out there and that you also miss us as much as we miss you. Without further, I do want to, hi there, how's it going? I see a couple of those chats coming in, so great to hear from you guys. Jan, great to hear from you. Thank you for saying hello. Gilbert, hello, the Gilberts, I believe. Pam, hi there, with a smiley face, loving it. So without further, I do want to take a moment to introduce your speaker today. Gail Huberman is the Director of Business Development with Market Pro Home Buyers. She's got a wealth of knowledge and experience in the field. She's worked in the space for many years and has supported seniors throughout various transitions. She's got a lot covered today, so without any further, I am going to bring her on to make sure that her audio and visual is working, and we will get started. I do also want to say hello to Jeff and Linda. Great to see you all on another webinar. Really appreciate you guys being here. All right, let me do a quick camera check. Hi, Gail, how you doing?
Hi, Morella, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good.
Well, I am going to turn it over to you. I hope you have fun, and I will see you for the Q&A section.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate being here today and having the opportunity to talk to your group. I am going to spend about 30 or so minutes talking about downsizing and options for selling your home. But before I get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my background. I am the director, as Morella said, of business development over at Market Pro Home Buyers, and I work directly with seniors and elder professionals to support senior transitioning in downsizing. A little bit about my history is I am originally from Baltimore. I came to DC to attend American University, and after graduating, I got my real estate license and went to work for a commercial leasing firm, commercial real estate leasing firm for about 5 years. I did leave the field to raise my kids, and once my son was old enough to head off to college, I wanted to get back into the workforce, but I was actually dealing with an ailing grandparent at the time. She was 96, and because I lost my parents at a young age, she was my sole responsibility. So a few years prior to this, she had been diagnosed with a condition that was causing a gradual loss of vision. What I didn't realize at the time was it was also causing depression and isolation for her. So I found out at a later point that she was actually stopped going and participating in her community's activities. She was in an independent living community. But just after her 96th birthday, she took a fall and was hospitalized. And what I found out at the hospital was she was actually completely blind in one eye and had lost most of her vision. She had less than 50% in her other eye. And she had been hiding the severity of her problem and did a very good job at it. But at that point, she immediately needed to go into an assisted living, and needless to say, I was in my upper 40s and had no idea what to do, where to turn. I literally stumbled through this and found her a place, but then I was dealt with her home full of stuff and what to do with all that. So I got her situated, and then I was able to focus back on finding my next career step since I had been out of the workforce, and I came across Market Pro home buyers. And what interested me was because of what I had just dealt with my grandmother. I like that they offered options to their clients of either selling her home or and work with a realtor, or they would just buy the home from you and they would take care of packing, moving, and clean out, just to make an option to have a hassle-free process. So I've been with them for over 4 years now, and I'm truly grateful to be part of such a wonderful group of people. Now let's go on and we can discuss the topics for today. I'm going to talk about how to determine if you're ready to downsize, and then go through your senior living choices, the home selling options, and which I already mentioned would be working with a realtor or accepting a cash offer, and then what to do with all your stuff once your property is sold. Okay, so when it comes time to figure out if you're truly ready to downsize, I think it's take that pad of paper and start asking yourself some questions. First thing you should think about is how much space do you really still need? And this may require a conversation with family members. You're going to want to talk to them about if other family members are willing to pick up the responsibility of family entertaining. You have to decide, do you want space for grandchildren, for them to sleep over? You have to look at if your family is out of town and they're coming in to visit, do you want enough room for them? And then you have to look at your own lifestyle. Are you a chef and you still want a big kitchen? Are you an avid reader and not ready to give up your book collection? Do you need outdoor space for a dog or other pets? Or do you love gardening and not want to give up that private space? It's important that you have a good understanding of what you need and what you want in your life. Many of these things can be done outside of the home, and it would allow you to go into a smaller space, but you need to be at the point where you're ready to make those transitions. Another question you're going to need to ask yourself is how is your health? And this can be a difficult situation. You need to consider if you have underlying health conditions or a recent diagnosis that may impact you moving forward. Another important thing to consider is, do you have long-term care insurance? How would a change in your health impact your finances? And then the next thing you're going to want to look at is, what can you afford? Is your income changing? Are you about to retire? Will you be receiving Social Security? What other government assistance may you qualify for? All of these are going to be important factors when determining if you're ready to downsize and the type of downsizing you want to do. So you're going to want, especially on the financial arena, to work very closely with your financial planner. As I said here, be sure to consider the unknown. I think that's important all through life. We never know what's going to come our direction, and you want to be prepared for it. You definitely do not want to be financially strapped in your senior years. So let's talk about senior living choices. There is independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing care, and continuing care retirement communities. I'll take a few minutes to go over each one with you. Independent living has many options, but I broke them up into three of the main options that you have. You can continue living alone in a smaller residence. This would be in just a regular neighborhood, not a 55 plus or senior community. There are, I would say, if you find yourself, if in section 1 you found yourself really not ready to give up much, then you're probably not ready to make a big transition. I would probably look at moving into maybe a smaller home with a first floor master bedroom. You could also consider a duplex, which is 2 homes that are attached, which would limit the amount of land, just give you less land to take care of. And you can also find those with first floor master bedrooms. And a lot of the newer townhomes now are being built with elevators. Those are good options if you just want to make a small downsize. But it's important to discuss this with your financial planner, because many people that own their homes or have small mortgages may find that it's going to cost them more money to make this transition, and it may not be something that you want to do. Now, on the flip side, if you're looking at all this space as more of a hindrance and you've come to the conclusion that downsizing definitely would benefit you and be a good option, then you may even want to consider something smaller than the single family home, duplexes, townhomes. You can consider an apartment or condo. Again, this can be not in a senior building, but the things you're going to need to remember if you stay in a independent living outside of a senior community is you are going to be responsible for all your interior and exterior maintenance. If you do not have long-term care insurance, you will find that in-home care can become very expensive. You can become isolated over time. I think a lot of times you're going to see seniors move out and younger people tend to move into neighborhoods, and this could become isolating. This may also not be a final move, so you need to be prepared to know that you may have to move again. What we have seen that's been very interesting is a lot of seniors are choosing to move near college campuses and stay into independent living there, because the campuses also offer them many resources. They have access to food services, libraries, they can take classes, there's athletic buildings, easy bus transportation, and some seniors are even finding full and part-time employment on campuses to stay engaged. I think it's a great idea. I think it offers a lot of the same amenities that a senior community would offer. But I think the one thing you need to take into consideration is you have a risk of noisy neighbors and transient neighbors, since seniors rent a lot of properties close to college campuses. Next option would be living with a family member. This is a very individual choice and sometimes can be a cultural choice. It is really important that you have an in-depth conversation with the family member that you're considering moving in with. Everyone needs to be on the same page. And you might be super excited to be moving in and spending more time with family and your grandkids, but your son or daughter may be looking at it more as a live-in babysitter. So you need to have clear boundaries set. I suggest that you even consider financially contributing to the household, whether it be rent or groceries or whatever it might be, just so the lines don't get blurred over time. Now, the third option I've listed is living independently in a senior community. I think this is truly the best option when downsizing, because they offer a range of living spaces, anywhere from single family homes down to apartment size living. And they offer a ton of amenities. Like I said, near campuses, you have the options of educational classes, exercise classes. They'll have lectures, put on exhibits, have concerts. There's on-site food services. They have local buses that will take you to stores and markets. They also, a lot of them offer various field trips to area attractions. Another benefit to these senior communities is they have on-site management. So they will take care of both indoor and outdoor maintenance. And this is even included if you were to buy a single family home in one of these senior communities. I actually have a couple that I'm friendly with that moved into a senior community, and they told me they feel like they've just gone away to camp. So I think if you do your research and you find the right place that suits your needs, you can be very happy there. The next option is assisted living for seniors. The best option for those with chronic health conditions who may need daily support. This should be considered if you're having difficulty with hygiene, dressing, food prep, and or medication. So I was telling you a little earlier about my grandmother, and I mentioned that she was having a vision problem, which was giving her, causing her problems with her food prep. And what I would do would be I'd cook for her on the weekends, take it to her on Sunday, she'd freeze it and have it, you know, to use for the week. What I didn't realize was I thought what I was doing was helping her. It was actually just a Band-Aid, and we really should have started to have the discussions on assisted living. By not having them, it meant that her decisions were very rushed. So I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I mentioned earlier that she had taken a fall and gone to the hospital, and she had immediately needed to go into assisted living from the hospital. So at that point, she had known two friends that had moved into assisted living, and she wanted to go where they were. Well, you call and there's no availability, or there's a long wait list. So I continued looking, and then what I found is a lot of the places that had availability she could not afford. I learned very quickly that senior communities do not care about how much money you have in the bank. They only care about your monthly income. So what ended up happening is I did find a small assisted living community near her home. It was a community with about 20 residents. And for my grandmother, who was very social, this was not ideal, but I knew it was a safe place for her to be. I will tell you, she would have been happier had we not been rushed and had she been able to make more decisions with where she was going to live. I would say that the pros to assisted living is it's a really good option for those that just need some day-to-day assistance in living. It offers great socialization. All meals are provided. They help you with laundry and housekeeping. And it's a much more cost-efficient option than in-home care. One of the downsizes of assisted living is your living space is going to be much smaller. It's typically going to be closer to 1 or 2 rooms. It is a more scheduled lifestyle with planned times for activities and meals. And another thing you need to remember with assisted living communities is many of them have wait lists, and you can be waitlisted for years. So you're going to want to look into them and understand your options ahead of time. There's also companies out there that will assist you in finding the right assisted living community for your needs. They'll take into consideration your health and the extent of help you need. I'm more than happy to share names of companies I've worked with, which I can provide with you to you after this. I'll give you my contact information. So next, let's talk about skilled nursing care. Give me 1 second. So skilled nursing care is for seniors who require 24-hour monitoring and medical assistance. Facilities are staffed with trained medical professionals. There are licensed nurses, physical and occupational therapists, speech pathologists, audiologists, and others who perform medically necessary treatments every day. I would say skilled nursing care is actually similar to assisted living, but it's a much more institutionalized look to it. It is very beneficial though, and a very safe place to be if somebody's living with things like severe memory loss or severe mobility issue. Skilled nursing homes and skilled nursing facilities are different because a lot of times people use those terms incorrectly. A nursing home is the term for it's a long-term option for living, as where a nursing facility is for short-term rehabilitation, and you usually enter in and exit out at some point. So let's talk about the next is continuing care retirement communities. So the CCRC is a tiered community offering independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing care all in one community. The pro to something like this is you will not need to move again, and they will also monitor you closely to monitor changes in your health and needs that you may have. It's also nice because if you move in as a couple, you know, with your spouse, and you're on different levels or have different needs for your health and maintenance, one might need to be moved to assisted living, and you're in close proximity to each other. So, you know, staying close and visiting becomes easy. The downside to working or moving into a continued care community is they usually require a large deposit. It's typically 6 figures and up. So this is a long-term commitment. There are privately owned communities and also non-for-profit communities. And the concern about private owned community is if the property is sold, you don't know that the next owner will keep it up to the same standards. And you have a similar issue with the non-for-profit. There may be a low occupancy rate, which means the money they are making to spend on the community might not be as plentiful as they had hoped. The other issue with going into one of these communities is you must start in independent living. If you're already at the point where you need assisted living, you're not going to be eligible for the community. It is truly a huge decision that will impact you for the rest of your life. So you really need to do your research and make sure you choose the right community for yourself. So making a change does not mean giving up your passion or your family gatherings. So decide what's important to you. I think if you take your time and think about what you want for your future, you can find a path that will work well for you and find an option that will work well for you, and be able to continue all those passions and have all your family events. So now you've decided you want to downsize and you need to sell your home. You basically have 2 options. You can sell with a realtor or you can take a cash offer. There's also the option of selling for sale by owner. I would not recommend this unless you really have a extensive background in the real estate market. I know that when I was in commercial leasing, I had a friend that I worked with who wanted to buy their home without a real estate agent, even though they were a licensed real estate agent, but only they only knew the commercial arena. They ended up trying to do it without a realtor and had to pay the seller's realtor to help them. So it's really not a great option unless you have a true understanding of what you're doing. On the next slide, let's talk about realtor versus cash offer and the differences between the 2. So basically a cash offer is supposed to make the process hassle-free for you. So when you look at what you need to do when working with a realtor, you're going to have to repair your home and renovate your home. Now, obviously, if your home is in good condition, there's not going to be much to do. If it's in disarray or has a lot of renovations, this could be more extensive. When working with a realtor, you are going to have to clean up your house and show your home. Due to COVID, most of these showings are being done online, which I do think makes it a little easier, but I think once we come out of COVID, you are going to go back to having in-person showings. There are termite and inspections and appraisals and loan approval that are needed when working with a realtor, but not with a cash offer. That's obviously because on the cash offer, they're buying the property as is, so there's no inspections or appraisals needed, and their loan approval because they're working with cash. Clean out. Working with a realtor, you will need to clean out the property. With a cash offer, you can leave as much in the property as you want. Closing costs. Yes, you are responsible for closing costs when working with a realtor. When working or accepting a cash offer, there are no closing costs. Closing time. Typically with a realtor, it's going to be 30 to 45 days once a buyer is found. The market's pretty good right now, so a lot of homes are selling relatively quickly. So it might be 30 to 60 days before your house is sold. With a cash offer, you can settle in 7 to 10 days. What's nice about the settlement though with the cash offer is it's flexible. So you can have a settlement date and push it out if you choose to, which some seniors do because they're waitlisted in senior communities. So it just gives you a little more flexibility. Commissions with working with a realtor run anywhere from 3 to 6%. With a cash offer, there's no realtor fees. The ease of the sale, obviously with working with a realtor, you need to comply with the above list. And then working on a cash offer, they're trying to create a hassle-free option for you. The value of your home. So if you go the route and do everything to comply with what a realtor needs, you should receive market value. If you choose to go with a cash offer and have the company take over all responsibility for your home, cleaning it out, and packing, moving, and closing costs and everything we listed above, you should expect to make 5 to 10% less of the net value you would with a realtor. So basically, to sum up, if your home is in decent shape and you don't mind getting it market ready and having showings, then selling your home through a realtor is going to be your best economic choice. On the flip side, if you have a dated home that has a large clean out, or you're dealing with some sort of medical, financial, or life situation that makes this process difficult or overwhelming, that's when you should understand and consider a cash offer. There's really no wrong or right answer to this. It's just important that you be educated on your options so you can decide what is going to work best for yourself. So now, what to do with all your stuff once your home is sold? There are several options, as you can see. You can sell or give to family and friends, sell online, hire an auction house or an estate sale company. You can work with a liquidator. You can donate items, and then there's always a junk removal company. As I mentioned before, if you go the route of a cash offer, you can leave as much or as little in the property as you want. So a lot of this won't be necessary, but there still may be things that you want to sell or donate. If you're working with a realtor, you will have to remove everything from the property. So let's first talk about friends and family. What you want to do is, when you have them come in, you can offer them what you want, but you want them to be responsible for moving the items out. Make sure prior to them taking the items, they take measurements and make sure the furniture they're taking fits. I unfortunately learned this the hard way. My daughter moved into a apartment in DC and desperately needed a sofa. So instead of her buying one, I actually had a sofa that I loved in my study, but it was a few years old, and I figured, let me give it to her. And then I would just get myself a new one. So I actually had the new one delivered and had to put this one in my garage because she wasn't coming till a week later. So she rented a truck, got some friends, came to the house, loaded the sofa up. She had taken the measurements and assured me that it fit in the space in her apartment. They drove it down into DC, took it up to her apartment, and it wouldn't fit through the doorway. So it could not even make it into the space that she knew it would fit because the doorway was too small. So they ended up taking my sofa that I loved down to the loading dock where they left it overnight, and it was gone by morning. So it was unfortunate. I had no place to put it back in my house because I had already filled the space. So I hope it found a good home, but it was a lesson learned. The other thing you're going to want to do is any items that they can't just physically remove with them at the time, you want to put their name on the item, because when it comes time to moving these out, you're going to want to know who should take what so there's no confusion. And you also want to have a schedule of moving times. The last thing you want is everybody coming at the same time trying to get their things out of the house. Next is you have the option of selling online. This is a good low-cost way to sell items, but you are going to want to have a good understanding of how the online company works. Do they charge to put items on their site? I know there are sites like Craigslist and online marketplaces where you can put items up for free or for nominal charges, but not all sites work that way. You're also going to want to find out if they take a commission on what you're selling. There's a company, an example of a company called Realtor that they sell high-end items online, and they take a % of the sale price. You want to know what their shipping requirements are, who is responsible for the shipping. And typically to sell online, your items need to be searchable. That means that people want to be able to do research on the value of what they're buying. You will definitely be more successful if you're selling name brand items. You also are going to need to understand the online payment methods and be careful of scammers. There are companies that you can hire that will do online selling for you, but this will greatly eat into your profits. I would recommend that if you have a family member or a neighbor that is computer savvy, maybe pay them a few dollars and ask them to help you. Next would be hiring an estate sale company or an auction company. COVID has impacted these companies, so it's going to be important that you talk to the companies that you're considering working with to see how they are proceeding with the COVID guidelines. Many of them are now selling online. But let's talk about estate sale companies. Traditionally, this is a good and relatively easy way to sell your items. They have a good understanding of the value, and they'll know how to price your items. Because of impulse buying, it's also a good way to sell non-searchable items. A lot of times people just like touching and feeling things and just have that impulse to buy. Another bonus with estate sales is the buyer is responsible for removing the items from your home. The auction house is a good way to sell high ticket searchable items. Obviously, the hope is that there is a bidding war. In the past, the auction house has required you to get the items to them, but again, because of COVID, this may have changed, so you will need to check with them. As far as the value of your items, there's a rule of thumb that is typical to follow. Items will typically sell for 1/3 of their value. So if an item is valued at $300, it's going to sell for around $100. but then you're responsible to split that amount with the company that you've hired. So a $300 item will typically yield you about $50. Next, let's talk about liquidators. So liquidators work a bit differently. They buy in bulk at a very low price, and they may not take everything. You should expect with a liquidator to make anywhere between $100 and $500 for a house full of stuff. I know this sounds very small, but a lot of the benefit comes in them removing the items from your house. I think that a rule of thumb is knowing that a lot of times we value our items as more expensive than what others value them as. So let's talk about donating. Call an organization in your area and see what they're accepting. A lot of it depends on their warehouse space, and that will determine if they're able to accept anything at all. And if they are accepting, you want to find out what they are willing to take. A lot of times they will not take fabric, furniture, rugs, sometimes mattresses, because they're worried about pet infestations or other mold concerns. They also are usually not interested in large items like credenza, armoires. If they will take beds, they usually don't want king beds, because most of the time they're trying to help furnish small spaces. You also are going to want to ask them about what their pickup policies are. A lot of organizations are going to ask that you remove the items from your house and either put them on your porch or down by the curb. I do know that the wider circle in my area, in the past, this was pre-COVID, would go into the home and remove larger items, but again, don't know if they're still doing it with COVID. The good thing about donating is you should be able to take the donation as a tax deduction. So that is an added benefit. So if you've gone through all those steps and you still have stuff left in your home, your best bet is, unless you want to pack up a truck and haul it to the local dump, would be to hire a junk removal company. They will either price by the hour or by the amount they haul. So again, check with them and they will give you an understanding of how that works. So basically, bottom line of today was making a change does not mean giving up your passions and family gatherings. It just means you're doing them in a different way. There are more options available today to seniors than there ever were before. You should look at those options and plan for your future while you're able to. And you should do it before somebody else has to do it for you. That concludes the discussion. I'm happy to take some questions, but I also wanted to provide you with my contact information in case you want to reach out to me directly. My office line is 301-337-4703, or you can email me at ghuberman@marketprohomes.com. I thank you, and Morella, feel free to send any questions my way.
Hi, Gail. How you doing? Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, I am actually going to stop a screen share, and that'll then just bring us up full screen, so that way it is just the two of us and we can tackle some questions that have come in along the way. So the first question that I have on here is, how does one get started? You talked about, and you had a lot of great tips around, you know, different communities and getting the transition process started, but where do you start? I mean, if you've been living in your home for 40 years, what's the first step?
So I think, as I said, you really want to start with understanding what you want to do next as far as size of place you want to move. Are you able to downsize to an apartment or condominium? I think you want to think about, how many times do I want to move? So if you're only willing to make a slight moderation and move to a slightly smaller home, then there might be another move in your future. As I mentioned, there are companies out there that can help with independent and assisted living communities, and they don't charge to do this, so you don't necessarily have to go through a realtor. But that is in a senior community. That is not, you know, if you just want to move into an apartment building down the street where you have some senior friends in. I would say also it's important to discuss it with your family. You're going to want to make sure, like I said, that they can maybe pick up some of the family responsibility that you typically have done. And then talk to, you know, a company, you know, understand your cash offer, understand working with a realtor, so you can make the choice of what works best for you. And then the downsizing, I kind of went in order of what you should consider it, because that's where you have the most benefit of the economic value, is if you kind of work it down in that sequence.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to, I do want to say that sometimes these first steps are so daunting, right? You're like, well, where do I start? How do I get started? Where do I turn? And so it's good to talk through some of the options that are out there. And so I know that information was extremely valuable to everyone. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think when you take that first step, you'll find it all kind of falls into place.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking on that note, I do want to encourage all of you out there that are still remaining on the webinar to submit your questions. If you have anything that you'd like Gail to tackle, I am happy to pass it along to her. As far as, you know, thinking about real estate, right? And where the market is today. I don't know if you want to tackle that in any sort of way, but I know given COVID, so many folks have been at home so long, and I'm wondering, like, if now's the time to sell, should they, or do we hold on, you know, down the line as far as making the next step?
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I think financially the market, the real estate market's doing well right now. Interest rates are still low, so people are able to sell and sell pretty quickly. But with that comes the transition, and because of COVID, you know, you then are somewhat exposing yourself to needing to make the move and things like that. So it's a little bit of a double edge. You know, I think what you don't want to do is you have to look at your situation and include your health. And I think it's very hard for a lot of people to be realistic about their health. But what you don't want to do is wait too long where, like I said, there comes a time where somebody else is making those decisions for you. So if nothing else, even if you're not ready to make the change, understand and know your options. Mm-hmm. So you are prepared, you know, to do it when the time is right.
Yeah. On that front, are there specific resources that one could go, like, online? Is there a specific, like, database as far as where to get started with the transitions? Like, I know I'm going to use Care Patrol as an example. They are out there and they can help and do some of this research that people are not aware about. Do you have other resources that people could go to?
So I've actually done a lot of work with Care Patrol, and they're wonderful. And there are other resources like that. They are one of many companies that I talked about that will at no cost help you find the right option to transition into. So you can basically, you know, Google transitioning companies. You have to be careful. Some are transitioning your things and some are transitioning you.
Yeah.
Make sure, but everything is searchable online. You just have to be careful as to what sites you're going to when you do the research process.
Cool. Very good. Awesome. So I'm getting a couple of questions from our audience. The first one is, From Barbara, she asks, how can we find out more about the continuing care retirement communities?
So again, researching online is a great resource. I am not as familiar with them as some of the others. As I mentioned, it is a long-term choice. And typically once you go in, that is where you're going to remain for the rest of your life. So I would recommend that they search it online, search the communities near them that they're interested in, call and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Understand if it's privately owned, understand if it's a nonprofit, see if it's the community's full, how much availability is. Because like I talked about, if it's a nonprofit with low occupancy, you want to make sure that they're receiving the funds and the amount of money they need to run this well. So it's calling them, researching them, and knowing from start to finish what you're getting and what they're offering.
Yeah, I actually started out my career at a continuing care retirement community, and oftentimes we reference Leading Age is an organization which is a nonprofit. It's an association where it houses all of these continuing care retirement communities. There's also a resource called the Source Book, which I don't know that they still publish it or not, but that was another resource that was a printed resource, and it had all of these nursing homes, assisted living, continuing care, retirement communities, etc. So
Sourcebook is a great resource in general for seniors, not
yeah.
only for assisted living
Awesome.
or continuing care. So
awesome. Well, I'm throwing that out there from back of my memory. I'm pulling it out of my files.
No, that's great. That's great.
Jan has a question. If finances aren't an issue, would the CCRC option be a good solution?
So it's an individual choice. It is a good solution in that, like I said, if you go in with your spouse, you know that you can stay there together. Apparently, or obviously, if their health or your health, one deteriorates quicker than the other, they may need to move to a higher level, but it's all within the same community. They also take care of everything, and they monitor you. So it's an easy route to take if you find the right place and you're comfortable with it and can afford it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something to your point. I think the first statement was, finances aren't an issue. It's good to evaluate all of that throughout the process to make sure what the right fit will be for you. What are your needs? Like, I remember when I worked at Goodwin House, it was so many people were into the arts, and the arts were so important to them, and that's what they really looked forward to. So just consider what your interests, passions, hobbies are, and see if that community fits that.
Yeah, I think too, what people have to remember is in-home care gets very costly. So you really want to work with your financial planner and make sure that you are doing what's best for yourself. If funds are not an issue and you want to stay in your home and that's what you want, then it's fine. But you don't want to be financially strapped, and you want to have good care, and you never want to give up your care because you can't afford it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I have a final suggestion in here from Tony, and he's just throwing out a suggestion out to everybody. And he's just saying, if you are considering moving into a continuing care retirement community, visit much like you may have done when you were helping your kids look at colleges. Go tour the place, see how you feel. So he's just putting that out there to everybody as you're considering these options.
So on Tony's note, there are some continuing care communities that will let you spend the night. So you can see if you can do that and discover if it's really going to be the right place for you. I mean, yeah. I'm sure night might not give you everything, but it's an idea.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that like many of them have waiting lists that you could become a part of, so you can kind of indoctrinate yourself into the experience. So great suggestions out there, Tony. Thank you, everybody. Gail, I'm going to turn it over to you for a final word. If you have anything additional you want to wrap up with, and then we will wrap this one up.
Okay, no, I think I just want to thank you and say that, I know it sounds like an overwhelming process, but there's really a lot of resources out there for you. Again, if anybody wants to call me, I can help you get started. But I think you'll find once you take that first step, it's really easier than you thought. And again, I think the most important thing is that you do it when you are healthy and you can make all the choices. You don't want your children or somebody else to have to make the choices for you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I appreciate you and all of your expertise. It was definitely very informative. And if anyone has any follow-up questions, you have Gail's contact information, and we will be sending a recording of this out to you so you can tune in again. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you all again next month for our next webinar, which I believe is going to be centered around estate planning. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all. Thank you, Morella. Take care.
Bye-bye.